Well, welcome to our first bonus video here for the Acrylic Portrait Painting Challenge Masterclass to take us between lessons 5 and 6. This is where we're at in the progress, and we've got a nice level of contrast, but the image is still very, very faint. So we want to bring it to a higher level of contrast so that when we start out with lesson 6, we can go right into it. I'm going to open up with a word of prayer and we'll get started. So Father, I ask a blessing on this painting session. Help me to be able to show the students watching the next steps on this process. I pray you guide every brush stroke, bless them in their paintings as well. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, we're going to dive right in. I'm using my round brush here. Just had to check something really quick there. All right. My wife, I thought she was walking into the building here and I had to pause the video for a second, but it was a false alarm. Okay, what we want to do is add some contrast to the clothing primarily. So let's go ahead and take some raw umber dark, mix that into our matte medium, and we'll add a little bit of ultramarine blue and just kind of get that a little bit darker. So raw umber dark, ultramarine blue, and maybe just a touch of alizarin crimson. So we're just continuing with the process we've already begun from before. And I tell you what, I think before we even do that, let me just shift gears. We need to lighten up these buttons. We need to lighten up these buttons so that we can still see them. Otherwise, we're going to end up losing them in the image. So let's go ahead and take some titanium white and a bit of raw sienna, and we'll just mix color together. Titanium white, raw sienna. We have this quite opaque. And we're going to go ahead and just add them in right here. And I think that's where they are. Okay, just let that dry. Then we'll go ahead also and add a little more titanium white to this color. It's very opaque. I would say it's probably, probably 70% opaque or more. You can see as I paint this over and even touch it over on top of the previous color, how opaque that is. All right. Now, let's go ahead and just paint this over the shirt, and we're going to separate the shadows from the highlights. So we've got highlights up, and I guess having a little bit of temperature differential in here. My wood heat, I didn't have that tight enough in the easel. Just get that in there a little tighter. Okay. Got to make sure you have your painting in there really well, especially if you're putting on pressure. So we've got a little bit of a highlight. Let's see if we can zoom in just a little bit more here. Now we add a highlight to the top. Just barely touch it. It's going to get refined more later, but I just want to take this opportunity since I mixed that lighter color and just kind of isolate it a bit. I think for now that's going to work. We might need to do some more refining later. All right, now that we have that done, I can go ahead and put in the glaze that I was going to put in. So we're going to take our, it's like a 1/4 inch flat here, and let's go back to that glaze we mixed. Add just a little more raw umber dark to it. Some matte medium, just kind of make it a little bit stronger, and show it to you on the white card. This is what we've got right there. So it's getting a little bit more robust each time. So let's go ahead and we'll add that in on the extreme sides. I think for sure, right here, Again, we'll put that on the interior of the clothing. Now you're going to see those buttons through it. We're not going to try to paint around the buttons. You can see them shining through, and then we'll just go back over them later and bump up the contrast. But because this is still somewhat translucent, we can see them through. So I'm just going to try to brush it out as smoothly as I can. And we're going to go ahead and add a little more contrast. A few spots. Let's just zoom out a little bit so you can see more of what's going on. So we just kind of cut it in along these edges here, just flowing over what we previously did. I'll have to use a smaller brush to get some of the details. So at this point here, let's do this lower part. All right, so this section down here, and then I'll pivot into a smaller brush to get some of the details. As you can see, it does take quite a few layers. I will make a differentiation. Actually, no, let's go over this because that is still going to stand out against some of the layers we previously had. So we're going to cover over that part as well. All right, I'm just going to kind of mute the edge of it a little bit, bring up that shadow slightly into that area. This part can get darkened, so this is where we really have to make some decisions and nail some things down a little bit more. Now we want to darken this edge here a little bit more. So we'll just darken this. I think the glove also can get darker in tonal value as well. As long as I can see his hand underneath it. We'll have to come back in and kind of lighten up a couple of areas of that. Trying to keep everything as smooth as we can. We're going to fill in this negative space behind the rope. But we will come back in and overlap that with some positive shapes later on. And then we're going to darken this area here. The leg, just kind of define that edge. And we have these negative spaces in between the ropes, so just try to, get that in as best as we can. Put a little shading there. And a little bit of shading here. I think I got everything pretty much that I can get with this larger brush. So now I'm going to switch into a smaller detail brush. Spray my palette quickly. And let's go ahead and mix a little bit more of the same color if we can. I just kind of ran out. Probably should have mixed more, but it's always a good exercise to see if you can match it. So a little ultramarine blue, raw umber dark. All right, I think we have something pretty close. We can double check it on the white card. So this is the new version. That's got a little more red in the mix, but it's pretty close. Okay, now we'll take this and we'll start working in some of these shadows. I'm going to need to just add a little bit of matte medium to this and make the mixture slightly more translucent. But we want to start blocking in some of these other shapes. start at the top and let's start working in the shadow for the hat. So this smaller brush will be able to get it a little more precise, kind of dial in the shape just a little more. I'll do a little bit on the left-hand side. Dial in that a little bit more as well. And that little peak right there on the top, which is slightly cropped off of your camera, but let's see if I can raise that up just a little bit. All right, now you can see it. And we'll just continue here with a little bit of shading, and then it gets lighter. So we want to just hit the corner of this hat and then not bring it all the way out. And we'll darken his eye a little bit and the eyebrow, just get a little bit of that sense of what's going on. It's probably the first time I started adding darker shape, darker value on those particular shapes. A little bit in the mouth area, trying to keep everything general. Slight shadow in the mustache area. Let me zoom in just a little bit so you can see that more. Okay, and then here we're going to darken the area between the beard and his clothing, collar. We have a nice dark shadow here on that left side, so we want to accentuate that here as well. Darken this a little bit there. Under the hat, the brim, let's get a little line going across and use light pressure, which will allow it to be a little bit of a lighter line. Dab it a little bit. Then we've got this band going across the hat. We just want to accentuate that. And then somehow this part here needs to get darker. That brim of the hat actually comes up higher. I don't know why I have that lighter, but that needs to get darker up there. There. Yeah, we got to make sure we have that shape correct. Just going to accentuate the edge of the hat a little bit, and I put the line on it, then I dab it with my finger, so it's just a little light. Notice that the bill of the hat, or the brim, or whatever you call this part, is thicker on the left than it is on the right. So that's a distinction you want to mentally make and incorporate that. Now we put in some little shadow shapes here for the scarf. I don't know if you can see that in the reference photo, but there's some really intricate shapes in there we want to incorporate. So we get them in there. And we'll just put in a few indications for that. All right, so just some little shapes inside here. Just to show that we kind of have a scarf going on. So I'm kind of tightening up all of my edges here with this detail brush. This is a size 2 detail brush that I'm using. You can see that. Utrecht brand. And I'm going to get a little shadow there to separate the collar, because he's got those many layers. Want to get a nice strong edge right here. A little bit of a stronger shadow here on this section of the clothing. And there. Now here we need a little bit of a shadow that separates portion of the clothing. I'm just going to wipe off some excess paint that was on my brush, make sure I have less on the brush, which then allows me to get a lighter layer here. If you have too much glaze on your brush, it gets darker. All right, so we go ahead and we just put in a little shadow in there and in there. Skinny shape that kind of gets thicker and then attenuates on the top. Now, usually I like to work from left to right, but sometimes I get pulled into certain areas of interest, so I realize I'm now resting my hand on a portion that I just painted. Fortunately, with this wood heat, it's like already dry, so normally it would be a problem, but now, today, it's not. Because it is drying probably within seconds, less than a minute. All right, I'm going to put that layer down. And now let's just really kind of refine that left edge. And this precise work with the detail brush does give you a really great sense of the wrinkles that are taking place. And that's important for an image like this where we do have a lot of detail. So we want to get those precise shapes on all of these wrinkles as much as we can. A strong shape going up to the top, little triangular shape in between these two shapes. There's like an accessory wrinkle right there. Put that in. Spray my palette. Okay, and we're going to continue on adding this glaze, bringing it down a bit as well. And let's kind of blend this shape out, bring a little bit of surface shading into the interior of the midtones here. Okay, we'll bring in a little bit more. And then I'm going to get a little bit of separation. I guess I'm layering up on the previous layer. So, we're going to add a little distinction between the side of his jacket and then the arm area. So let's see. Got the part of the clothing. I need to bring it out a little bit further. Need to really get a strong edge in here. Know how far this part comes out. Spread it out where it needs to be. But now we're getting some differentiation between the bottom of his sleeve and then the gloved hands. And the gloves have open fingers, so there is that consideration. And then we want to paint the lines in between each finger and define where they go. Make sure we have the right amount of digits on here because some of that got lost for my sketch. Yeah, it really did. So I'm going to have to make decisions here and figure out where exactly the fingers are at. So we've got the first finger, second, and then this is the third. No, that's not quite right. I don't know what's going on here. Let me honestly figure it out. First, let's establish the distance between the thumb and that first finger joint. Maybe it's just a little bit off. That's a little bit off here because you've got the rope and then wherever that lines up. I should have defined that better in my sketch and would have made it easier on myself, but I can do it now in paint. Just kind of keep things somewhat abstract and tighten it up. So that's what I'm seeing right now. Just try to get that shape refined, and I might have to refine it a little bit more later. Now I'm just going to paint around that edge. Want to make the hand too big, that could be a problem. So just kind of dab that out. We'll have to tighten it up later. All right. You have a few wrinkles that need to be adjusted here. I didn't quite get this shape ironed out. It's just a lot of detail on this image. Got to keep your paint really fluid. Make sure you're spraying it with a mister and keeping it as fluid as possible. Now you can see how fluid my mixture is here. I just got done spraying it, so it is really, really fluid, and it does make it apply a lot easier. Kind of fill in this corner, and then here underneath that first finger. So this is on the other hand. There's a joint between the first finger and the glove. Get some transverse wrinkles going across to show, you know, that the arm is projecting outward. It's important. We got a little shape in here. Want to put that in on the wrinkles and an accessory wrinkle or two. Oh, okay, I don't have that quite going in the right place. Let me just redefine that. I'm picky with where the wrinkles go. I don't want to just invent them. I want to really observe my reference photo. Looks like we got a wrinkle here and then another one there. It kind of cuts across. And when they go at different angles, it makes them very believable. You know, so we have one that's up here. Now this little overlapping fabric on the coat is skinny and it curls down. We want to show that. We've got a wrinkle right there. And we've got one right there. All right. So now we'll go ahead and darken some of these shapes here. And then right here. Little definition. Some shading in right here on the leg. And then I'm going to put in some contrast right here on the side of the horse on this halter structure. So I'm going to darken that using our detail brush. Here, put a little bit of texture in down here, and now let's move below and get some of the foot detail in, some of these shadows and shapes down there. Okay, and let's see. Let's put some shading on the other side. So we'll pop in a couple of, we're sticking with this same glaze, haven't changed it. It's just the same glaze, and we're just pushing it as far as we can. I know we've got a rope that overlaps it. I think we're going to have to just paint that opaquely on top. I don't know. I'll see if I can paint around it a little bit just so we don't lose the definition. But sometimes it is easier to paint it on top. Nevertheless, we're just going to try to put in these little leather straps here and just get a sense of the structure. Put in some of the contrast here for the foot. And then we've got this strong shape on the opposite side, the stirrup. Put that in. A little bit of shadow work for the shoe. I mean, we already had it in there very lightly before, but now it's going to be much darker, building on the foundation of what we already previously did. And we'll put in a little bit of a dark line here. There we are. Now darken the eyes a bit. Okay, again, building up more contrast. Just want to scan the image a little bit and see where else we can incorporate this. Oh yeah, down below here. That part can get darker, and then it's thicker and then thinner. So it just kind of starts off thick and then it gets thin as it tapers toward the horse. There's a strap here. Darken that as well. Maybe this might be a point to start putting in some of these diagonal shapes for the rope, you know, because that's pretty well defined by some of these, whatever, is candy cane kind of looking stripes. So maybe we'll start putting them in. It's going to be, they'll be a little thicker as they're on this side. So I have to remember that. They're closer together here because that's foreshortened, farther apart in this section here because that's directly facing us. So make sure you leave a gap. Make the lines both thicker and farther apart as they're in this section here. That makes sense. That'll give it more realism. And then here, notice the angles. This has a little bit of a different angle there. Okay, and then we also have that same striped rope down here on the bottom. And the lines get closer right here and then a little bit farther apart there. I think that adds something to it. Of course, might as well do the rope that he's holding on to finish the look. So right here, we'll also get some of those lines in. Right, and then right here, there's another one. Oh, almost kind of lost it for my sketch, but should be in here somewhere. Guess I'll have to redefine it with some lighter paint as well. All right. Now we want to do some work on the background and kind of introducing some of these darker tonal values there. I think we should use a larger brush. I don't think we shouldn't have the background be too tight and detailed. We want to make sure that background is a little more subdued. So bigger brush, a little less tight, a little more abstracted, and that'll help the figure to stand out. But let's use the same color. Okay, so we're going to get it on a slightly larger. This is a size 6 brush, and I think it should give us, whoops, a little bit more abstraction, hopefully. If not, I might have to switch to a flat. Yeah, I think that's kind of doing the trick. So we'll just pop this in a few spots, get these dark tonal values in there. We don't want to overdo it. Try not to make it look too patterned. Here we have a nice little shape taking place. Get a couple of these going on to the top here as well. And just kind of pop that here, there, and everywhere. Just going to dab that a little bit. I want that to be a little lighter. And it'll really start to work once we have enough layers. We just don't quite have enough layers yet for it to really start looking fantastic. We got to get some midtones in there again. But here we'll do some dark tonal values, kind of going behind the horse. Actually, would like to switch to a flat, so I'm going to do that. Take our 1/4 inch flat, just give us a little bit more distribution of paint. We can cover it faster. Cut around the top of the horse. See, close up so you can see the brushwork. All right, so something like that, and just kind of break it up a little bit. Just kind of just massage it in there. Allow that glaze to exhaust off the edge of your brush, and you can fade it out on the end a little bit. And try to let some angles go off the edge. Don't just paint it vertically so that it's tight on the edge of the canvas. Just give it a little bit of a break. We'll put in a few little strands of grass up here, a few blades of grass. Kind of going at a little bit of a different angle. Again, cutting around the horse. And a couple here. That'll give us some contrast to work out of for the man's clothing. All right. Yeah, I think that's good now. That gives us a little more contrast overall in the image. Now at this stage, we might want to do some work on the background and darken a few areas of that as well, so everything's kind of coming together evenly. So let's go ahead and we'll do that. Yeah, I like how the grass has turned out. And we'll do more with it. Let's take a little bit of a larger brush. A little bit of a larger brush. This would be maybe just a little larger flat than the last one. And we'll take some ultramarine blue. Boy, I gotta spray my palette. It's drying out so fast. All right. Grab a different flat brush here because the one I had didn't quite work. All right, let's try this one. We're going to take some ultramarine blue, a little bit of raw umber dark, bit of alizarin crimson, a little more raw umber dark, Okay, and I'll show this to you on our white card. This is what we've got. Kind of in the family of some of these other glazes we've used before, but a little more robust. So, I just want to move that camera. All right. So we're going to start in the upper left corner. Start pushing in some paint, just kind of darkening everything. Getting that edge a little darker. Just really scrubbing that paint into the weave of the canvas. Cutting around the hat if we can, so that we don't, darken that hat too much. It needs to stick out and be lighter. I'll use this opportunity to refine any areas, add maybe a few little nuances that were missed. A little darker up here in this spot as well, and then there's a break where it's lighter right up there. Flip my brush around so you can get a firm stroke, kind of takes us off the edge of the picture plane. And then load my brush up again, and we're going to cut along the edge here of the hat. Turn that brush at a nice angle. Really nice stroke in there and there as well. And then we'll have a little divot in right here. I'm trying to position that based on a horse's head, so it's at the right place based on what I'm seeing in my reference photo. These lines kind of come together. There's a little bit of shading down here. And we don't want it all to be light on the bottom. We want it to be a little bit darker as well, so that the lighter tonal value of the reeds can stand out. Darken it a little bit down here as well. There we are. Push that color in. Okay, so we have a section where it's lighter right here, and then this is somewhat darker, and that's somewhat darker, which is good. Again, it allows our reeds to really pop out in tonal value. Okay, so now we'll want to do a little bit of work on the ground, on the snow. So we can take, that brush that I had was okay, but it's just a little bit too rough. I need something smoother here. So I'm going to use this other flat brush. I've got a lot of brushes that are in kind of bad shape and they're falling apart, but they can still be used yet. I'll spray my palette a little bit more. And let's go ahead and take the color we've got, and I'm going to add a little bit more blue to it. Just get the chroma up a little bit higher, that saturation a little bit higher. Okay, and we'll show this to you on our white card. You'll be able to see the difference between the glaze we put on the mountain versus what we have here. So this one is not as dark, not as saturated of a pigment load, more translucent, and it's a little more blue. In fact, I think what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of alizarin crimson to it and just shift it ever so slightly to the violet spectrum. Add a little bit more ultramarine and then a little more alizarin crimson. That's a strong pigment. If you have too much on your brush, just kind of wipe it off. Just wipe it off the edge. All right, that should work. More blue. Just a little more blue. I have to add some more matte medium. That's fresh. Squirt it right there, right where I'm working. This is going to be a little bit of a different mixture than what we had. So, show this to you on the white card. Okay, a little bit more purple. Now, let's go ahead and add that. I'm going to bring my camera down so you can see the brushwork for this, how that works. But I'm going to start just going over the bottom and then brush it right across. keeping those strokes, you know, really mostly horizontal, a little bit diagonal. I'm noticing that the horse color is not quite as violet as the snow, so I want to keep that in mind and probably not put much on the horse with this particular color. You know, it's just barely making a difference, isn't it? And we can use this opportunity just to get a little more differentiation in some of these tones, like right here, put a nice blue kind of band that shows some of the hill structure in the snow. We can turn our brush on the side to get a little bit of the divots, you know, some of these little divots caused by tracks in the snow and wind and that kind of thing. So we'll do that ever so slightly. Get a little bit of variety. In the front, we'll just kind of fade it out. We don't have to go as strong in the front. But we do need to get some color in there so we can play the snow off of that, you know, the little chunks that break away. I'm going to just darken this a bit. I'm going to add a little more ultramarine blue to this mixture. Get it just a bit stronger as I'm going in the front. Now, it's easy to overdo this when you don't have a lot of experience working with the glazing technique, so don't go too opaque or it's going to get really out of hand and you're going to have to try to lighten it up. Really try to keep your mixes quite light. Again, look at your white card so you can really see what it should look like before you apply it. See, this is still really light, even after adding more pigment to it. You know, and then if I put in even more pigment, this is how it looks. Even with that, it's still pretty transparent, pretty translucent, right? So you don't want to overdo it. If you check it on your white card first, that'll really help and help keep it from getting out of hand, getting too dark on you. Now, if it does get too dark, it's not the end of the world. You can still adjust it, so don't worry about that. But I'd like to save you that hassle, having to, you know, make adjustments by lightening things up too much. All right, so just glazing this a little bit in here, getting a little bit of, and let's put some of this into the area behind the reeds. That should get darker. Now I will put a little bit on the horse, just maybe a little bit on the top, because that's where we're getting, you know, some of the sky color reflecting on his mane, and just put a little bit up there, and on the hindquarters as well. A little bit right down there too. It's going to help him to stand out. All right. So we'll darken that a little bit. And could we add a little bit to the sky? Maybe we could. Let's take some phthalo blue. Just a little bit on the corner of our brush, and then let's move it into the side of this mixture where I have some fresh matte medium. All right, so that's going to be a little bit more of a robust mixture, but check it on your white card. Notice the difference in color temperature, where it's more aqua. If you can see that. See how it's more aqua colored? That's more purplish, but they're almost the same level of opacity. Very faint. So you can put that on the top now, and that will really enhance the sky. So let's go ahead and do that. Just paint that right across. Just like that, keeping that wet edge, and it just gives it a little more richness. And you can see we really take baby steps with this, don't we? I'll just throw a little bit of that color into the hills just so it's not there sitting by itself. And I'll even throw just a little bit of that into the portions of the horse, like maybe right here on the side, a little bit down in here, just to give that a little more contrast. There a little bit as well. Yeah, I think that helps. All right. So this is where we're at now. I'm thinking I'll finish this off by doing a midtone for you. We'll do a midtone that, goes over the clothing of the man and then also into the reeds. And I think that should tie it up and put a nice bow on the top of this bonus video for you. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to see if I can rinse this brush out a little bit. Get that blue out of there, and then we'll grab some fresh matte medium. Put it on the vacant spot on my palette right here, and then let's take some burnt sienna. That's the color we need. That paint's drying up so fast. Burnt sienna. Yeah, and I think maybe just a tiny bit of raw sienna. Okay, but we're using definitely a higher intensity mixture than we have in the past. All right, so I'll show this to you on the white card. Now this is where we're at. You can see some of the previous mixtures, and it's maybe just a little bit more intense than the previous mixtures, but because we've already got these layers on there, I think it's going to make a pretty nice difference. So let's see how that looks when we start applying it. I think you'll be able to see it pretty well, and it's going to really give it a greater richness. Yeah, so we just put this right here, kind of doing similar strokes to what we've done, these vertical strokes. And behind the horse, I'm going to just leave a couple of open spots where I can put in some more golden tones, like a little more like raw sienna, Indian yellow kind of colors there. But you can see, how this is working with these tones added. Now I could add that to his clothing, and maybe I will just in a little bit of it. I see some of it up in the corner, so I don't want, to have that color just isolated by itself. And I do see some down here on the chaps, on the shoes. Oops. Let's make sure we have that going in the right spot. Obviously on the halter, if you can turn your brush and get it to go in there neatly enough, you can do it with this larger brush. If not, you could switch to a smaller one. Put it in behind the rider. Okay, also in these areas as well. I think that's just good for color continuity under the horse's neck. Just kind of work that in. I think that gives it a nice richness. I have a couple of these areas going down into the snow. And then maybe we can just get a little bit into the tail that's hanging down, just to keep that color going into the rest of it. Couple spots on the leg, not too much. And then, oh yeah, we need a little bit in his face. So for that, we'll have to take a brown brush, I think. And we're going to work that into the face, because he has that kind of golden tint on the mustache and beard. Even a little bit into the cheeks and slightly into the nose. So I just want to make sure I don't have too much glaze on. I do want to get a little bit of that into the face. All right. So now let's put a little glaze on his coat. We have to get a slightly different color for that. We can use either that same brush or we could use a smaller flat as well. I guess I'll just use a slightly smaller flat. We're going to take the same glaze, we're going to add a little raw sienna to it and some raw umber dark. Raw sienna, raw umber dark. We'll mix a little bit of the burnt sienna in. A little bit darker. A little more raw sienna. Okay. So, show this to you on a white card, see how it looks. So if this was the previous glaze we put on the reeds, this is the one that's going on the jacket. A little bit of a different temperature, more yellow. This is more red-orange. It's going to be more earthy. We need that differentiation. But remember, we put a little bit of the burnt sienna in there just because I saw some of the golden tones in. Now this should be dry where we can layer on top. So let's go ahead and do that. Starting in the left-hand corner, you want to make sure you're going over all the shadows, and you're going to be able to see through it because it is translucent. That's the beauty of the glazing technique, is we can preserve our detail. We can go over everything. Maybe just that spot will leave a little cooler. I'll just wipe it away right there because that is being affected by the color of the sky. Now we'll put a glaze over the hat, into the shadows as well. The brim of the hat is a little cooler, so I should leave off on that spot. And I don't know if probably shouldn't put it into the skin tones because it's kind of the wrong color temperature for that. You could put it over the interior of his jacket if you want. That's okay, because that's a very dark color. It's not going to affect it that much. We want to get it over on this side as well. Like I say, if you wanted to use your larger flat, you could. But let's put it over the gloved hand. Okay, so again, different color temperature. And let's also let it overlap onto the shaded part down here. Now there, the color temperature is a little cooler, so maybe we should leave off there and hit that with something else. But just so, you know, everything kind of works together cohesively, you can layer on top of your shadows. Let's see. On the boot, we have a couple tones. We've got these yellowish tones. We have also the burnt sienna tones as well, so it's okay to add this to those areas. Don't put it over the halter because that color is more of red-orange. You do have to get this yellow tint in there, but that's going to be a slightly different color. Now, for the lower part of the horse, like, you know, the areas down here, we do want to glaze that in, but I think that's too strong. Yeah, way too strong. So we're going to have to just thin it out, add some more matte medium off to the side, take that mixture and just make it a little more translucent, transparent. And then here's how it looks like on the white card when it's made a little lighter. You can see the difference between the previous one and then this one here. So now we'll go ahead and we'll apply that to the legs of the horse. So that'll go on like right here, and I think that should work pretty well. If we have to, we could add a little bit of Indian yellow, and maybe I'll do that in a future glaze if necessary. But I think this color here to start with should work pretty nicely. Indian yellow could get a little overpowering if we overdo it. A little bit here on this particular joint. Yeah, so even the color is starting to get a little too red orangish, so we might have to shift into using just a bit of Indian yellow in this area here pretty soon. Put in a little bit of a glaze on this section here of the rope going across. And a little on the muzzle. I detect some of that color in there. Even just a hint of it on the top here. If you can see that. Just right up here on the top of the horse. Just some hints of that color. Although we will probably need to bring in a little bit of Indian yellow as well. Yeah, that would be another glaze. Okay, one last thing. I'm just going to put in a little bit of shading here on the clefts in the snow. So we're going to take some ultramarine blue. We're going to add that to some of the colors we've got already. Working in, to that color we put in on the hills of the mountains. So if you have that color handy, you can work off of that, or just mix in a little bit of raw umber dark, bit of alizarin crimson in there. But predominantly ultramarine blue is the color we're looking for. And then what we want to do is pop that into a few little parts of the clefts here on the snow on the bottom, and that will finish off our bonus video. So just right here, this is a good spot. Darken it so it looks like it actually goes in deep. Here, a little bit as well. Well, if you want to see that color on the white card, I'll show it to you. 1 second. Here's what it looks like. All right, so you can see it's kind of similar to what we had for the mountain, but a little more robust, a little more blue, a little more higher chroma. Okay. A little bit of shading in there. Here. We're just trying to get some differentiation, get some darker tonal values in the bottom. Variety. Really indicate then these depressions in the snow, that there's, kind of some little areas where the horse's hoof indented it. It's just really mostly under the horse that you have these darker values, shadows being cast and that kind of thing as well. Okay, and then I might want to use this color on the horse briefly, seeing like maybe I can put in a couple of darker tonal values on the mane and just kind of add a bit of differentiation and texture there. So always trying to take advantage of every color that I have mixed on my palette so I don't have to, mix it again. Okay, put a little bit of shading here, there, and then just a little bit on the hind quarters of the horse. Some differentiation. A little bit right in here as well on the structure of the horse. Surface shadows. Got a nice little line right there we should put in. Shadow right there, that would be good. I put a little shadow in under that halter. I think that's what it's called. All right. I'm going to stop off here. So this is what we're able to do in our bonus video. Just really, increasing the contrast in several areas in the image. There's a lot more to do, like this spot in the background. We got to get some more midtones in there. But I think it's really helped to get some contrast in on the rider. And, some more work on the ground, getting some of these tonal values in here and contrast in some of the forms. So yeah, I like how it's progressing, and I'm looking forward to seeing your progress on this as well. So this is how it's going to work. I have to make a decision if I'm going to post this bonus video also on our YouTube channel, because I'm trying to show the entire process, in these masterclass lessons, but it's really impossible to show every minute, every hour of what I'm doing. I try to get all the stages in there as much as I can. And the rest of these bonus videos go into the Realistic Acrylic All-Access membership. And that's what the folks there that pay for the All-Access membership get access to, these extra videos. And it's just a pretty big catalog of videos that goes, into our online school. And it's not necessarily something, that I want to inundate my YouTube channel with. So I hope you can understand that. But if you are seeing this bonus video here on the YouTube channel, well, then it's my gift to you to show you this extra video that I didn't anticipate necessarily putting in the lineup of lessons, because originally I want to do up to 8 lessons for this masterclass series and this challenge. But again, I don't want to have the transition between lesson 5 and lesson 6 to be so abrupt that you're like, oh man, what did you do there with the contrast, and how do you do that? So I might very well just post this video into our YouTube channel and just kind of give it as a free gift. And also, just time-wise in my schedule, it works better too, for getting out my lessons and everything. So, hey, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Leave me a comment below the video, wherever you're watching it, whether it's on YouTube or in the school. If you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of me. You can leave me a comment, email, message. Love to answer your questions as much as I'm able to. And I'm looking forward to sharing our next step on the lesson here, coming up in lesson 6, where we're really going to tie things together and add a lot of saturation and detail and blending. But I'll see you in that next lesson coming up. But I hope you enjoyed this bonus video. It is raw, unedited, and I'm here for you. I'm so proud of your progress. Like, I've seen so many fantastic portraits in our Facebook group, and you guys are all doing a fantastic job. And so keep up the great work, and look forward to sharing more with you in these masterclass lessons. All right, for now, God bless. And this is where we're at in our process. So I will talk to you soon. Take care. See you in the next lesson.